How does that benefit you right now in terms of the trading and the business you are in? Does AI play a role with it? If your journey had a tagline, what is your legacy? Like, what are you building? So, what's the next big chapter? Here we are again with our episode of Funding the Future, the unscripted stories of those who fund the future. And guys, I'm super duper excited because today I got a good friend of mine, which we met fairly recently, but immediately like we connected, on our minds, our souls. Like, I call him a brother now, but he is an incredible mind and he does something which I never done before. He does understand the cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, probably better than anyone else out there. He's been working with cryptocurrencies since his diaper. His name is Jeff Tiefenthaler, and I hope I didn't mess up your last name because it's pretty hard to pronounce. It took you a couple of tries, but Jeff, thank you so much for being here with us, for the viewers and for me as well, because I'm excited, really learning, a little bit more about what you do and get one to things out of it for the viewers as well. So thank you, Jeff.
It's a pleasure, John. It's great to be here. It's good to see you. And you were close. It's Tiefenthaler.
Tiefenthaler.
Tiefenthaler, yes, sir.
Tiefenthaler. Okay, so like a Tiefen and you taller.
Yeah, that's right. Tiefenthaler.
Tiefenthaler. And you're pretty tall too. You got like 6 feet something, right?
6'3".
6'3". He's a giant. He's not only a giant physically, but he has a giant heart as well.
That's kind. That's nice. That's nice.
Thank you. So Jeff, I know you've been messing up with cryptocurrencies and Bitcoins, and you've been really successful in what you do. Your track record really speak for itself. And now you are in the process of actually opening the doors to the public and bringing on some investors as well, so they can really benefit of what you've done in the past and take it to the next level.
Yeah, that's right. I've been trading and managing money, and I learned how to utilize the stock market since I was 17 years old, really. But over the last 11 years, doing it professionally in a partnership structure, and also building software with my partners in order to take advantage of dislocations in markets and trade. It really wasn't until I found Bitcoin that I was able to find a long-term investment that I was able to sink my teeth into. Prior to that, I'd always kind of wanted to be a long-term investor, but I always fell on the side of a shorter-term trader. I did want something I could park my money in and let it grow. However, as an older millennial, I just turned 40 this year. I don't know if you've made it to that club yet, John. You still have a young-looking face. So
yeah, I'll be turning 42 actually in a week. So I made it up already. Yeah.
There you go, man. Well, when I was working at Microsoft and I had some disposable income that I wanted to invest, it was kind of hard for me to pull the trigger and put it into like the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or even the Dow for that matter, because those stocks had run up so much since their lows in 2008 after the global financial crisis. I thought that was really the opportunity. And then when they ran back up to new highs, I was actually making the mistake and trying to short those. And it was an interesting experience for me because it taught me that the traditional market relies on so much intervention and propping up by institutions like the Federal Reserve, just the money printer, just the fact that these corporations, instead of using their cash to be productive, were buying back their shares. So shorting the market wasn't a good strategy for me. But I kind of just felt like the natural market didn't exist anymore, and I didn't want to put my money into something that was so heavily influenced by intervention. And then in 2017, I learned about Bitcoin and I found Bitcoin. I didn't initially start investing in Bitcoin though until 2018 because there was just such a huge run up in 2017. The price went from 1,000 to 20,000 in just a short period of time, and I thought, okay, let's sit back, let's learn about this asset first. And so ever since then, I've been putting in the time and the energy to learn about Bitcoin and learn about other cryptocurrencies, and that's what's really required. And that's one of the advantages that I have for doing this so long is I have probably over 10,000 hours studying and understanding Bitcoin.
I love that. And I think, what's the saying? It takes about 1,000 or maybe 10,000 hours of like practice hours, to master something. So right. you definitely have done it, right? You said you turned 40 recently and you did it since 17. So that's, 23 years and counting still. And what's amazing that a lot of these, guys, the traders, the period, the lifeline of the traders, it's only like a few years.
That's
because
right.
you either make it big or you die trying, right? It's like that's really what is happening. But if you, for those who haven't met you yet, right? Like, how do you introduce yourself, at the dinner?
Yeah, I say, I'm a securities trader, and then I let that sink in, and then they generally ask, well, what do you trade? And then I say stocks and options. But I'm really focused on Bitcoin as an investment and helping other people learn about this asset class and get into this asset class the right way. So then that opens up the door for me to talk about my fund, the Bitcoin Denominator Group, and then introduce them to some of the strategies that I use to help grow our funds.
So before we go into the nitty gritty, which I'm really interested in learning more about, what is something that doesn't show up on your LinkedIn? I know you're on LinkedIn. I don't think you're on Instagram because I couldn't find you yet. I hope I didn't misspell the name when I was searching for it. But what is that something that people don't find on LinkedIn, which otherwise would you say it's important about you?
That's a great question. Um, So in 2000 and when was this? 2009, I was hired by Holland America Cruise Line and Microsoft to spearhead a joint venture program where I set up these digital workshops on board the cruise ship. And in that capacity, I lived on the cruise ship for about 3 years, working on the cruise ship, traveling around the world. And I've been to all 7 continents, including Antarctica. I've been all the way up to Greenland. I've been everywhere. I've been to more countries than I have cities in the United States. And I really look back on that time as an opportunity for me to have a well-rounded understanding of the world and different cultures and people, which I think has allowed me to view civilization a little bit differently. I think people here in the United States can sometimes have a very narrow-minded focus on what the world is. But when you have a chance to travel around the world like I did, it really opens up your perspective a lot.
That's incredible. 3 years on a cruise ship. I wasn't even once. I might be going for the first time with a black card on
Nice.
the cruise ship, and I'm a little hesitant because you're on a big boat with a lot of people in the middle of the ocean. What if there's a hole in the ship? Like we all might sink down like the Titanic did.
Well, we got to make sure we let the women and children go first. And then, John, I hope you know how to swim.
I do. I do.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, we can find a life raft together, a little dinghy or something. So we'll just help each other out in that
Okay,
situation.
hang on to each other. That's good. Thank you.
Find an oar somewhere.
And so when you went on the ship, was it all inclusive? I hope, or you had to like pay for the meals and stuff.
Yeah, it was all inclusive. It was actually a really interesting experience because I didn't have a cell phone even at the time. I didn't have any overhead expenses. I didn't have to pay for my food. I didn't need to buy gas. Didn't have to pay rent. So yeah, it was really interesting. I worked for like I reported to the cruise director in that capacity. So I was part of the entertainment team essentially, and that meant that I had to sort of be out in the public at times. So I would go to formal dinners, I would go to the balls, I would go to the all the entertainment events, as well as helping people understand how to do basic things with their technology. You can imagine at that point there were a lot of empty nesters and older people that didn't really understand basic simple things. And so what we taught them to do is just get their pictures from the camera to the computer, edit and manipulate their photos, create videos, create blogs. They loved it, man. I think there were like 10 or 12 different workshops that we facilitated, and it was great. It was a highly popular thing. But outside of the workshops, I mingled with the guests, and then when we were at the ports of call, I was able to get off the ship and enjoy the various locations because I didn't have to really teach the classes while we were at a location.
That's an incredible job. Are you missing it a little bit? It sounds like you had a lot of fun.
It's interesting. I do miss it from time to time. Absolutely. It'd be tough to be where I'm at in life right now and live on a cruise ship, 2 kids and a wife, and so that we wouldn't all fit very well in a little officer's cabin.
I hear you.
I'm looking forward to doing that cruise with Black Card. So
Nice.
I hope you get into that.
Okay. Well, now talking to you about it, I'm more inclined to actually do it as well. Now, it sounds like that, you have a really technical skill, right? Especially when it comes to technology, because it sounds like, that's what you've been doing for the 3 years on the cruise ship. So how does that benefit you right now in terms of the trading and, the business you are in right now?
That's a great question. So about 10 years ago, I joined a partnership with 2 others, and we combined our powers and we started developing trading software. And so our software would do automatic analysis and order execution. And so we would work with different APIs as well, brokers like TD Ameritrade, Interactive Brokers, Tasty Trade, Polygon.io. You know, if you're a financial data service provider today, or a broker or an exchange, it really behooves you to have an API for developers who want to, you know, develop custom software and plug into your exchange. And so that's what I learned to do, and basically mix technology with financial markets. And it was a great experience. It still is. I'm building and expanding that software currently to use some of those methods in my current fund, and it's going to be great. But it also is important because it allows me to step away from the screen, so I don't have to, you know, manage my accounts 24/7. I can actually sleep at night and know that I have software there monitoring the crypto markets 24/7. And if there is an opportunity, then we can either get in or get out or adjust our positions that way. But not only that, it allows you to do analysis and research a lot quicker, make decisions quicker. It takes some of the human emotion and behavior out of the financial of the process, right? And sometimes, you know, as a human, we can get tied up in our emotions, and that can be detrimental for trading. If you get too fearful or get too greedy, you may make the wrong decision. So having a rules-based approach dictated by software is a very strategic and helpful thing to have. You know, it's like, I feel like I've been trading with and against machines for so long that I almost think like a machine now. And like when I see a stock or a crypto do something, and I'm like, is that algorithmic driven or is that human driven? And you begin to see a difference and distinguish between, you know, who is driving the ship. You know, is it a human or is it an algorithm? And it can help you make decisions.
That's, you know, and that's interesting, right? Because me as a real estate investor, I think, you know, a lot of deals you miss, or you sort of may get into the wrong deal. You know, like you said, when you're greedy or when you're fearful, when the emotion it's really involved, and when you're not using logic and really the math to analyze the deal. And I wish there would be something, you know, in real estate space when we're analyzing deals. Maybe, you know, we can talk about it a little bit further and develop something for the real estate folks as well, because I know within your space there is, and I spoke to a few people which does the trading, they're actually using something similar, right?
Yep.
So how advantageous, you know, it really is, you know, if multiple people using something over similar structure. That's one. And two, you know, does AI play a role with it as well, right? And what's an AI really in terms of, is it just reading a certain trends and, you know, analysis and numbers and put it into calculus to come up with, you know, certain decisions?
You know, that's a good question. I think we are going to continue to learn what AI really is capable of doing in this next decade ahead. And I think we're still in the early innings of understanding what that kind of intelligence looks like. You know, I for one, use AI quite a bit, but I don't rely on it, because I think there are still false positives, or the AI will hallucinate. And so it has allowed me to be more productive, but I still want to kind of back check the AI and make sure that I'm getting a unbiased answer or an accurate answer. And I found that over time it is better and better and better. And I don't know if I'll use it to make order execution decisions yet. Certainly analysis and research, it helps in that area, but as a human, I still want to be in control of the decisions. So it may be an automatically executed trade, but it's because it hit some sort of criteria that I created myself. I don't necessarily let the AI create and dictate that criteria, but it can guide it. And the AI can also help me see where I might have a blind spot, right? It might help me consider other factors or things that I'm not yet considering. So it's becoming a more important tool for me. It's just, I haven't, you know, totally walked away from the process and let the AI take over yet. I think we're still a long ways from that. That to me is sounds a little scary, but I think, you know, we're heading in that direction.
Yeah, it's kind of like when I gotten my Tesla for the first time, and I turned on the autopilot, right, the very first time. I was really hesitant of letting go of the wheel, but then I realized that actually, you know, it really keeps it in the lane, you know, much straighter and a lot more in the middle than I do at times. However, there are situations where maybe the weather's bad, or maybe the lanes they're not as clear, and then really it doesn't know where the lane is, right? So I think with that perspective, you know, probably the AI when it comes to trading or making those decisions, you know, even though it might really sort out a lot of the data points for us, however, we still have to oversee it and really make sure that it is in the right lane. Otherwise, you might end up, you know, running into a wall or something.
Yeah, we don't want that, John. We need
So
John
now,
on peace.
so now let me ask you this. If your journey had a tagline, what it would be?
That's an interesting question. um, it'd be something like running through doors without thinking twice. Meaning, I've been a very, if I see an opportunity, I oftentimes will maybe jump into it a little too quickly. And so I'll run through that door, right? If a door opens, I'm hoping that it's a good one. As I've gotten older, I've sort of been a little more careful about what opportunities that I pursue. But I do also think it's important to test the waters and try things, right? As a technologist, I love experimenting, and I think that's part of my journey. Is like, okay, this looks like a cool opportunity. Let's run through this door, and as we go around the corner at 100 miles per hour, whatever we run into, we run into. Sometimes, you hit a wall. You're like, oh, ouch, that hurt. Maybe that wasn't the best door to go through. But oftentimes, especially when I use, discretion and wisdom and knowledge, those opportunities actually provide stepping stones to bigger and greater things. So, that's takes me back to a lot of the things that have happened in my life were a result of being willing to take a chance and risk, perhaps looking like a fool. But I think those are very important things to consider. Right? Don't be afraid to fail, because if you are, then you'll never succeed. So yeah, running through doors without thinking twice.
That's a good one, and I love that, because I'm a strong believer of putting yourself into tough situations sometimes, and having those experiences where you can experience failure and fail forward, right? The key is don't make the mistake twice, and kind of reflect on what the mistakes were, and don't blame anything, the circumstances or the market or outside sources, even though many times that actually could be truth. But try to self-reflect on yourself and see how you can actually take that responsibility and the ownership of those mistakes, and possibly what you could do differently for the next one. So when you run through the door, there's not going to be a booby trap or something like that, right? I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink, and he said something about the Navy SEALs. It's not being fearful of running through that door. And many times on the other side they might be AK pointing right at you, maybe booby traps, but you have to go through that door with everything you got, and just believe when you get through that door you will learn something out of it.
Yeah, 100%, right? If it's a loss, you can turn that loss around and make it a lesson, right? Not blame anyone or anything for what happened. I like that you said that. You don't want to blame others. You don't want to even blame yourself. You're right.
So that's awesome. So now let's talk about what you do now, what you do right now, in present, which really lights you up and gives you the energy to keep going and just knocking more doors down.
Yeah, man. So that's a great question. Right now, I'm very excited about this time that we're living in. I feel like as a millennial, I'm living through one of the greatest transitions in history, from an industrial age to a digital age, from sort of legacy systems to new systems that are currently being built. And it's fantastic to live through this and experience this as a trader, because every day I have the opportunity to get up and help my clients provide for their families. And providing for them and being a good steward is incredibly important for me as a fiduciary of other people's money. And I know that means there's a lot of weight on my shoulder, but I take that responsibility seriously, because for one, they're trusting me with their nest egg, right? And this is something that allows them to not focus on managing their own money so much and doing the things that they're better off doing. So right now, I'm really happy that my thesis, which is basically get some Bitcoin, right? And a lot of people don't know how to do that. So I love being able to help them with my experience and my background, do it the right way. Because oftentimes people will make one of two mistakes when they're getting into this digital asset space. They'll they'll get over allocated to a broad basket of other cryptocurrencies. They'll get into XRP or Solana or some of these other smaller cryptocurrencies and not Bitcoin. And so they'll significantly underperform Bitcoin. And I help them understand the importance of Bitcoin and separating that from cryptocurrency, because Bitcoin is very different than other cryptocurrencies. And then
how different, if you may expand on it, like how different it is, and why do you think they invest into these smaller ones? Do they feel like they missed the opportunity with Bitcoin, and so they're looking for the new wild card? They kind of can catch the wave, and ride it right before everybody else sort of gets in.
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you look at price, let's just take price. Bitcoin is the king. It has exceeded and it's overperformed. It's performed better than any other cryptocurrencies, especially in this market. But there are some real reasons for that, right? The difference between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is that Bitcoin was started by someone who we don't really know who that person is, Satoshi Nakamoto. And this could be, people assume it's a man. I assume it's a man, maybe a woman, and maybe a group of people we really don't know.
Maybe alien?
Yeah, maybe an alien. Who knows? We don't know. We don't have that information. But what this person did was really critical when starting Bitcoin. They did not award themselves or any other insider any pre-mined tokens. So that's
what it means. So they didn't, when they created Bitcoin, they kind of just left it for the public, but they didn't take any themselves.
Yeah, what that means is when Bitcoin was first created, the creator was able to prove the very first block in the blockchain did not have any pre-mined coins, or they weren't distributed to other people. So like XRP, for example, I think I don't know, I'm just making this number up, but it's a very high, it's probably like 80 to 90% of the coins that started off with that blockchain were distributed to insiders. But that's different with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin was created, none of those coins were awarded to insiders. They were given to people who came into the ecosystem to contribute and build it. But it wasn't like there were any gatekeepers or you had to have a special permission to get access to it. Mm-hmm. It was open to the world right away. And that's not true of most all other cryptocurrencies.
It's not really like a smart business decision, right? It's like you starting up a business and opening it up, but it's kind of like you're not really benefiting out of it.
That's right. That's right. If you open up a business and you're like, hey, if you want to come work here, I'll give you ownership of the business. All you gotta do is work and prove that you're working. And it's cool. The other thing that Satoshi did was, publish a headline from a newspaper of the previous day. And he published that in the very first block of the Bitcoin blockchain, which is called the Genesis block, so that he can prove there were no secretly pre-mined blocks. There were no blocks before that block. That's why they call it the Genesis block. He did secure about 1 million Bitcoin in his own public wallet address, or their own public wallet address. Mm-hmm. But those Bitcoin have never been spent. And we can verify that and see to this day that there are 1 million Bitcoin sitting in Satoshi's wallet that have never moved anywhere.
How much is their worth right now?
Oh man, that's a good question.
Approximately, was Bitcoin at like 100,000 or something?
Yeah, Bitcoin's at 110 right now.
Oh my God. So, last time we spoke, it was a little bit below 100,000. That's like a couple of weeks ago. So I guess it fluctuates, goes up and down with the market.
So right now, that 1 million Bitcoin would be worth $110 billion.
Crazy.
$110 billion that he just, locked up in his wallet, and it hasn't been moved since 2008.
So he's one of the richest men on planet Earth, and nobody even know who he is, and he doesn't spend money.
Right. And when he or she realized that they could have a spotlight, right, as the lead Bitcoin developer, that would create a perception of overarching influence. They just simply left. Satoshi left, right? They just gave Bitcoin to the world. No event, no drama, no horse and pony show, no signaling of virtue. Satoshi just removed his name from the website and handed Bitcoin over to the other developers and left, never to resurface in any meaningful way. And that's selflessness and clairvoyance, and it astonishes me because you don't see that with other cryptocurrencies. It's a very different crypto. Bitcoin does use cryptography, but I put Bitcoin in an entirely different category than all other cryptocurrencies. And that doesn't mean that I'm bearish on crypto. I think there are a handful of cryptocurrency projects and protocols that are going to do extremely well in the next 10 years. And I'm interested in those. But I just like to be very clear that Bitcoin is, in my opinion, very special because of some of those things that I mentioned.
I mean, so they say, it's always the first baby is going to be the special one, right? So Bitcoin was, I guess, one of the first babies when it comes to, cryptocurrencies.
Yes, definitely is. It's the, there are other cryptocurrencies that came before Bitcoin, like DigiCash and eCash, and I've had the privilege to meet some of the founders and developers behind those projects, but they didn't work. They failed. They were experiments that helped lead us up to Bitcoin and get us to Bitcoin. And I think a big part of like the importance of Bitcoin is that it's decentralized, it's a protocol, and it uses energy. And so in order to create new Bitcoin, you have to mine it. And mining has come so far in the last decade that we have these $10,000 mining machines that are trying to solve an equation in order to earn that Bitcoin. So if you solve that equation, you as the miner are rewarded that Bitcoin. And it's so hard to do because it's so competitive. There are mining operations all over the world, and the miner with the cheapest source of energy is at an advantage. But what's really cool about the energy component is that you might have heard me say this when I did the pitch at Dan Woods, but in my opinion, money is a technology for us to store our time and energy. And when we work for money, we're using our time and we're using our energy in return for some money. But the problem is when other people can create money without using time and without using energy, then that money becomes inherently bad because no man should work for what another man can print.
That's riba. I actually posted a video about that today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why actually interest is forbidden in Islam, and you should avoid it because you make money without really any work whatsoever by loaning money to other people.
I'm gonna have to look for that video. I'd love to see that.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing I heard that there's just limited amount of Bitcoin, but now I know you said that people are mining Bitcoins as well. So they're basically creating new Bitcoins. So is it true that there is just limited amount of Bitcoins? That's why the value, it's a commodity just like gold, right? Or not?
Yeah. So there is a limited amount of Bitcoin. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin ever created. And so what happens though in the mining process is every roughly 10 minutes, it's approximate, right? Every roughly 10 minutes, a new block in the Bitcoin is created. And that block is full of transaction data. Any Bitcoin transaction that happened in that period of time gets stored on the ledger, the Bitcoin ledger, in that block of data. And all the other miners and valid node operators in the Bitcoin network get that data and propagate it through the network so that everybody has and sees the same thing. So nobody can go in and change a record without someone else seeing it. So it's immutable in that sense, right? You cannot change the data in the Bitcoin blockchain, which is a beautiful thing. And every 10 minutes, right now, about 3.12, it's not about, it's precise. Every 10 minutes, 3.125 Bitcoin is created every 10 minutes. But what happens every 4 years is that supply gets cut in half. So prior to last year was a halvening cycle. It was about a little bit over 6, right? Like 6.275 or something like that Bitcoin, 6.25 Bitcoin was created in every 10-minute block prior to the 2024 halvening. And then once that halvening occurred, which I believe was in April last year, it went from 6.25 every block to 3.125 every block. The next halvening will be in 2028, and it will go from 3.125 down to like, what would that be, like 1.75 something. So
I see. So they are creating more Bitcoins, but just the speed in which they're creating them, it's actually getting lesser.
yeah,
Right? So there's be a less valuable Bitcoin to the market, not like the American dollar, right?
Right. So that's exactly, you hit the head on the nail right there. So in 2028, in April, roughly April. We can't say exactly when that date will be, but we know within a certain window of time, it'll probably be in April, the block reward will get cut in half. So it'll go from 3.125 Bitcoin per 10 minutes down to 1.5625 Bitcoin per 10 minutes. And the beauty of that is we can predict what the inflation rate of Bitcoin will be 100 years or more into the future, because we know exactly how much Bitcoin is being produced now, and we're going to know exactly how much Bitcoin is going to be produced tomorrow, and no unelected official, no central government, no institution can change that.
Wow, how is that though? They can change it, because we've been told the same thing with US dollar being tied to the gold, and then they just say,
Right.
you know what, let's take the limits off, you know, and they uncap it, and look where it took us now.
Right. Isn't that crazy? Like, humans are fickle. Humans require trust, and humans can change their mind, and the decisions they make can infect the entire world. But not with Bitcoin. If you want to change something about Bitcoin, you have to submit what's called a BIP, which is a Bitcoin Improvement Proposal. Good luck. There are hundreds of BIPs in a list right now that you can go look at that will never pass. Because it is and this goes to the Bitcoin consensus mechanism. So when you want to change something in Bitcoin, you need to get consensus from the entire network. So that includes, you need to have consensus from the miners. And again, the miners are the ones who are solving those equations with their ASIC mining computers.
So those are like the workers which are working and developing the Bitcoin. That's why when they mine it, they actually get rewarded. That's how it gets paid.
Yes.
I got it now.
And then you have to get consensus from the node operators. And so a node operator is someone who has a copy of the rules that validate transactions on the Bitcoin network. And so for me, I'm a node operator. I have a full Bitcoin core node, and my digital wallets are connected to my node, so that whenever I make a Bitcoin transaction, that transaction information goes to my version of the node first. So it's sort of like a way to contribute to the consensus mechanism and the rules of Bitcoin without mining. And it gives you a little bit of sovereignty when you do that. I think everybody should run their own node, and they'll, in that case, have a copy of the Bitcoin ledger. And so again, it increases the decentralization of that. And then the third group, so there's really three constituents in Bitcoin, right? You have the miners, you have the node operators, and then you have the hodlers. These are the investors. These are the people who own and hold Bitcoin, right? And so in order to change something about Bitcoin, you have to have agreement between all of these people. And for the most part, you're not going to get these people to make a dramatic change to the Bitcoin blockchain. So
it's almost like changing the world and getting every single country sign on it before making the decision.
Right.
That's incredible.
It's very hard to change the Bitcoin rules. And when they do change the rules, if they were to ever change the rules, so have you heard of Bitcoin Cash?
No.
Okay, so there's a great book that I think everyone should read called I'm gonna butcher the name. Block Size Wars. I believe it's Block Size Wars. Let me look it up.
And so, in the meantime, friend of mine, James, he used to mine Cardano. A few years ago, he told me I should invest some money with him. I never did, and I'm not sure if I should. Are you familiar with Cardano? Is it a good cryptocurrency?
Yeah. Cardano is the cryptocurrency that Charles Hoskins launched, and the symbol is ADA. I don't own any. I don't want to disparage the work that they've done on that blockchain. I think it's a fascinating experiment. Like a lot of these cryptocurrencies, they're just experiments. Mm-hmm. But as an investment, I don't own any, and I don't plan on owning any. I have a very, very selective with my cryptocurrencies at this stage. I think we will move into a time in the future where certain cryptocurrencies projects solidify themselves and validate themselves as having some real utility. Like Ethereum. I own Ethereum. I participate in the Ethereum blockchain. I contribute to that. I run my own Ethereum validators. I don't know if you can see over my shoulder here. I have 2 at-home staking validator nodes for Ethereum that I spun up and I've been managing since 2020. And I think Ethereum has some real use cases, especially when it comes to stable coins. So like a couple of days ago, I believe it was the U.S. Senate that passed the Genius Act, which is the stablecoin bill. So a stablecoin is basically a digital dollar, and these stablecoins are built on top of Ethereum. So the Ethereum blockchain is not going away; it's growing. It has tremendous use cases, especially when it comes to smart contracts. And I like Ethereum, but I like it's not Bitcoin. Ethereum is actually it's kind of a helpful transition as we move from like analog systems to digital systems. Ethereum provides people with control, and they can create their own rules on top of Ethereum with smart contracts. And people want that flexibility and they want that control. And Ethereum gives you a lot of control over what you want to do on the Ethereum blockchain. It's a lot more flexible than Bitcoin is in that regard. But Cardano, I wish them the best, and I think there might be some potential there, but I don't really have a lot more to say on that.
I mean, I hear you, because like you said, your responsibility is to your investors, right? The reason why they invest, with you is to get some returns and, still a source of income for some, right? So of course you don't want to be speculating, what you park their money into and kind of put everything on the roulette or, blackjack, whatever that is, because so many times with these things, it's probably a gamble, right? It might go big or it might go home. Like we just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. I don't want to gamble with my family's funds. I don't want to gamble with my clients' funds. I will say this: I am a Bitcoiner through and through. So I have a lot of my net worth tied up in Bitcoin, and I actually sleep better having my capital in Bitcoin than at a bank. I sleep and I deal with the volatility, John. It doesn't bother me. If Bitcoin were to drop 30% next week, that's an opportunity to buy more. Like every time Bitcoin drops 20, 30, 40, 50%, it goes up another 100, 200, 300. So if you have the patience to wait and you've done the research like I have to understand this asset, it doesn't bother you. And so I think a lot of people,
they're trying to time the market, yeah.
They try to time the market, or they don't have a stomach for the volatility. And I think that may be because they have very short time frames.
Yep. And I think, you said it from the beginning, right? You were looking for that long-term vehicle, which you can kind of use to, invest into. So my question to you is like, what is your legacy? Like, what are you building here and why?
I want to help people get on the Bitcoin life raft. I think among the global uncertainty that we have in the world today, Bitcoin is a beacon of hope for people. And I want to be the person who told you about it. And I want to be the person who helped you get into it. And I want to be the person who helped you secure it and not lose it. And that way you could tell your kids that, yeah, it was my friend Jeff who really helped me understand and get into Bitcoin. And that's what I want to leave to my kids and their kids. And there's this funny meme. It's like little kid was sitting on his dad's lap. You might have seen this one. And the dad says, yeah, and grandpa all he did was buy Bitcoin in the 2020s and 2030s. All he did was buy Bitcoin. And the little kid says, effing legend. And so I kind of, I want my grandkids to be able to be like, wow, my grandpa, he really could see into the future and see around the corner. He didn't have his head stuck in the sand. He wasn't wrapped up in, just some of the nonsense that goes on.
The minutia and drama, which we've been dealing with, I think on purpose, right? I think that's been created all around us to kind of keep us scared and greedy and worrisome and just running in circles and kind of missing on the real opportunities or life itself, really, right? Because I'll be 42, and I remember when I was 22, and 20 years just they've gone like this. And you keep on asking yourself, the thing I'm doing today, is that the thing when I look back, or when my grandkids going to have a conversation with me, is that something which truly going to make me proud and going to make them proud? right? It's gonna make you legendary. So, what's the next big chapter for you, Jeff? What's coming on?
I'm launching the Bitcoin Denominator Group LP. I'm working with legal right now to finalize the terms, and
Sweet.
the next chapter I see, at least for the next 5 to 10 years, is helping people get into Bitcoin and ushering in the digital age and understanding of other digital assets as well. So that's really the big challenge. Will be this fund, capital raising, everything that goes on with that, John. As you know, it's just there's a lot. People don't really understand how much is involved with launching and starting a fund, but that's the next summit for me that I wish to climb, and I know that there will be challenges along the way that I'll have to deal with and just learn from you as well. And so I'm excited to go through this journey together.
Yeah. Are you coming to Salt Lake? Am I going to see you in Utah
Yes,
in a couple
sir.
weeks? Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I know we're really running out of time, and I want to be respectful. I really appreciate, you giving me the time, and you giving the viewers the time, and really sharing your wisdom and knowledge. I got a lot out of it. I feel like we could probably keep on going and just having a good conversation for the next 2 to 3 hours. But we're coming to the end. Lastly, where people can find you, how they can connect with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, I'm on X primarily. That's kind of my social network of choice is X, previously Twitter, and my handle is @Jeffrey Tief, JEFFREYTIEF. Or you can check out my website at almsofcrypto.money.
Sweet, my brother. It was great seeing you.
Hey, I got a question for you before we leave. So, given everything that you and I have been discussing over the last hour here, and some of the previous conversations we've had before, where are you at with Bitcoin in particular? How do you view this asset class, and how could it possibly fit into with what you're doing in the real estate space?
That's a great question. So, I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of smart people about Bitcoin, and they always tell me like invest into Bitcoin. Like years ago when Bitcoin was $7, $8, $10,000, and every time I look at the price, I'm like, damn, I missed the opportunity. But after having the conversation with you and a couple other people in Dallas, I'm leaning more towards actually putting some money behind it. Something what I do invest into. I hate keeping my money in the bank account or under the mattress. I put my money into real estate because my belief is we have just one planet Earth, and there's no more land. Like we don't make more land. So real estate automatically, as long of course it's in the right locations and there's a potential for development from various ways, it's always going to appreciate. And I've done it successfully for years. However, I got to keep my mind open-minded. I got to keep the doors open to new opportunities, and I feel like Bitcoin, it's one of them. So I'm actually considering. I speak to Tony Hudetsky. He invests into multifamily just like I do. He currently has about $1,000 under a management. So he's a pretty big dog, and he's also opening up his first fund where he's really going to take it to the next level. And something what he shared with me with his partner Brendan, they're actually going to switch it up. They're going to invest 70% into real estate, 20% into Bitcoin, and 10% they're going to keep it as reserves, for capital improvements and backup money, new opportunities, whatsoever. So I'm really thinking of actually doing something similar. I'm just not sure, with the percentages. I have to really run the calculus and see how that's going to impact, my investors' money and my money long term, because I also invest long term. I park my money into investments, and I do 10-to-1 exchange. I do 10-to-1 exchange. I do 10-to-1 exchange. Forever, indefinitely, right?
Yeah.
So I'm never gonna really benefit out of like the big pay, but other people will. That's my vision with it. But I'm really curious to know if I could, invest the 10 or 20 or 30, whatever that percentage is, with people such as yourself, right, as well. And the possibility is yes. The only thing which I still have to figure it out. My fund, it's really predominantly catered to be a halal fund, like I mentioned previously. We don't take no interest, no riba, right? We really got to make sure that the money we make, it's something we actually have created it. So like even with my investments, I just don't buy buildings and wait for the market to appreciate, right? We rather buy the buildings, and we improve the buildings, and we improve the experience for the tenants, and then in return they actually pay us high rents. and that's how we get higher resale on those buildings as well. So I just want to make sure, how you invest the bitcoins and how you do the trading and the options and all of that, that is halal, and that it's going to make our fund still be halal, still being compliant with our beliefs and our vision and our investors' vision and beliefs as well.
That's really interesting. I think you're right. We probably could keep this conversation going, and maybe we'll have to have a follow up, because Bitcoin is it is very spiritual and religious in a way. I've come across some information from other people on X who I follow that say Bitcoin is halal. And for me, I personally don't really understand that, so I don't want to talk about something that I don't understand. I'm a Christian, and when I look at Bitcoin, I do think there are some interesting religious parallels, right? So for one, in Christianity, we have the Holy Trinity, right? God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And it's kind of interesting because in Bitcoin, you have three different entities, right? You have the miners, the
I love it. That's great.
and you have that, and the hodlers. But you also have this idea of the Genesis block, right? And Genesis, right? From the beginning. Right? So with Bitcoin, again, remember, we know that was the very first block in the Bitcoin blockchain without doubt. We know that in the beginning, this is the very first block. There was this,
the Old Testament, you can say.
Right. Yeah. And you can't say that with other cryptocurrencies. But that may be a conversation for another time, because
I think we can possibly do just a podcast, talking about that, because I love to really, the real reason why I'm doing this, besides promoting myself and and you guys and the knowledge, it's really enlighten the people. Right, because I was enlightened myself, from, and be a little conversation, where I came from and where I am. It's only because of I had the opportunity to have a conversation with smarter people than I am, and have the ability to take the information and apply it in my life, and that's everything. And I feel like the playing field should be level, just like Bridget does with the black card, right? Like, he's trying to beat the Wall Street by giving the keys, to the world, to the ordinary people, just like me and you, to the people which maybe they don't have a status or diploma or connection or whatsoever, but they have the will to succeed.
Yeah.
Right, and they're willing to make the effort to make things happen. So I would love to do that. To really enlighten the people.
100%, man. That's what it's
Maybe
all
that's a good
about.
name for another podcast, the Enlightenment.
Everyone's gonna walk away from listening to this more spiritual, right?
Yeah. And I think, look, what's a spirituality, right? Spirituality, it's cleanliness, it's peace, from within yourself. It's clarity, right? It creates a lot of clarity and peace in your mind.
Yeah.
Joko Willig, again, they say, a clear mind, a quiet mind. It's a powerful mind, right? When you in the war, when you're in the fight, and there might be bullets flying through and grenades exploding, and you might have all these thoughts like, oh man, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna get shot, I'm gonna get exploded. No, don't put my head there, there's the sniper like aiming at me. But when you have clarity and your mind, it's a calm mind. Calm mind, it's a powerful mind. And something what faith gave me, it gave me that, because I didn't have that growing up. I was an atheist, growing up, and I had a lot of noise and a lot of fear and a lot of trauma and a lot of things going on in my mind. And I was always feeling like stuck, when I had to make some big decisions, and I didn't know what to do, because my mind was not at peace. I didn't have that clarity. So when I start believing in something bigger than myself, and something bigger than my nation, and something bigger than my abilities and capacities, right away my mind opened to bigger and better things. And I think that's the enlightenment which everyone should go through, somewhere, sometimes, in their life.
Yeah, totally. And you exhibit that through your character. I can tell when I met you, it was clear to me that the confidence that you have about who you are is rare, right? Not everybody has that. And they say the eyes are a lamp to the heart. And so whenever I look at someone, I could almost like tell right quickly, like, is this person being honest with me? Are they being real with me? Are they being their true, authentic self? And I could sense that in you right away.
Thank you, Jeff. And that's why we connected so well, because same thing. It's and I really appreciate how vulnerable and how open you are willing to be. And we met for the first time in person in Dallas, and we had some pretty deep conversation, which it's not easy to have for someone, even with people who you might be knowing for your whole life, right? But you just don't feel, and I wouldn't say comfortable, but you almost feeling afraid
Mm.
of opening that door, right? Because we feel like maybe the person might take advantage of us, and we've been all taken advantage of, at some point in our life. That's guarantee. If you haven't, then you just haven't lived enough. I think you
Yeah.
haven't kicked many doors, to go through that. But I think the willingness to be vulnerable, I always admire that about you,
Yeah.
and to be vulnerable, not just one on one, but even in a group setting. I read, somewhere in some book, or maybe heard it from someone, that the best leaders are willing to be vulnerable,
Mm.
no matter the cost, no matter the price. They still willing to be vulnerable, and that's really where the real connection is. Because end of the day, we all people, we all human beings.
Yeah.
We all have pains, we all have feelings, we all feel angry sometimes and happy. Like, we all go through certain stages in our lives. We
Mm.
all born and we all die. So, like, no one is, everyone is unique, but no one is really that unique from each
Mm.
other. And I think, for us to be more open and more vulnerable, where we can actually talk openly about certain things which we struggle with or go in life, through, it makes those connections, right?
100%.
That's how we make those connections, and we figure it out, and what we got to do and to move forward.
That's good, man. I agree.
So I'm grateful for you, man. I really appreciate you, for talking to me, for having the conversation, for God introducing me to you, and having the opportunity to speak, and learn a lot from. And that's a wrap on this episode of Capital Truths, the unscripted journeys of those who find the future. If something sparked your thinking today, don't keep it to yourself. Share the episode, leave a comment, and keep the momentum going. Money is just a tool. Clarity is the game. Stay curious, stay bold, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.